Hello everyone, welcome to Gyaan channel. I'm Grandmaster Priyadharshan Kannappan. We have been talking about checkmates in chess. Basically, we've been talking about checkmates in different squares on the chessboard. So we started with A1 and we moved to B1, C1, D1, and we are now on the H1 square. So this is the eighth square of the chessboard that we are being, completing with this topic. So H1 is like the left corner most square if you look from black's perspective, and most likely, the white king would only get checkmated with a check on the H1 square. I mean, high probability. There are obviously exceptions, but majority of the time only the white king would get checkmated with a black piece landing on the H1 square. So as usual, I have chosen some, really good examples to kind of illustrate or, kind of make this idea so that you better understand it. So let's start with the first position that we have on the board. And this position, if you look at it, white has two minor pieces for the rook. So basically, like, two minor pieces for like a rook. So technically, white has a good position. Also, white has a big threat. It's queen takes h5 check coming up, or queen d3 check, and pick up the rook. But it's actually black to play, and the players are two star players. I would say white is Luke McShane, grandmaster from England, and black is former world champion Vishwanathan Anand, and this is from the World Rapid Championship in 2017. And Anand played a fantastic move here, and the game ended in like one more move after that. So it's basically a checkmate in two. So I would highly suggest you to pause the video, think about the move that Anand played and the checkmate variation that he played, and then proceed forward with playing this video. I hope you found out the move, and the move that Anand played here is Queen h3 check. Did he just blunder a free queen? No, he did not blunder the queen. There's actually a deeper idea behind this Queen h3. The point of it is white is obviously forced to capture, and here comes the checkmate, and that's the topic of this video, Rook h1. And the point of it being the king cannot go to g4 because there's a pawn here, and the king can't go backwards because the rook is controlling the square, and king g2 is not possible because his own knight is on g2 occupying the square. So fascinating queen sacrifice, right? So we learn a very important lesson here. Checkmate is the ultimate goal of a chess game, right? So you can even sacrifice a queen if you can achieve your goal. So queen h3 checking, h3 rook h1, and there is no no other alternative for white to even respond. So let's move on to the next example that I have over here. So the position that we have here, let me flip the board as it's white to play. And this was also from a faster time control game. This was from a Blitz tournament and a pretty recent one played in 2020 in July between Grandmaster Sanan Sujigirov and Anatoly Bikovsky. And here it's white to play. And again, white has a very forcing way to checkmate in this position. And I do hope you have found the idea because it's kind of similar to the previous position. If you haven't yet found, pause the video, do calculate as much as you can to see till the mate and then proceed with the video. Really good job if you found queen h7 as the move. The point of it being after queen h7, it's not a free queen that you're offering to the black because after king h7, you give this nice little check, rook h1, and the king on h7 can't go anywhere because if it goes g7, there's a pawn. It can't go g8 because there's a bishop and the king is under check, and the king can't run anywhere and the check can't be blocked or the rook h1 can be captured in any way, right? So because all these three possibilities that you can do when your king is under check doesn't exist, it's a checkmate. And after rook h1, black, basically just have to sign the score sheet and go home. So very similar to the previous example that we just saw. So let's move on to the next example that we have here. So this position is black to play. And if you look at it, looks like black can even pick up a queen for free, or like not for free, I mean for like, giving up a rook for the queen. Looks like a pretty okayish thing. If you do want, you can play rook takes e6. But as we have seen in the previous two examples, the most important thing is, checkmating the opponent's king. So in those examples, the attacking side sacrificed their queen to deliver a checkmate. In this example, black decides not to take the offered queen, instead finds a way to force a checkmate. So I would suggest you to pause the video, do calculate the variation. An important thing to notice is that this G3 pawn is really, really a strong one for black. It's kind of restricting the movement of this king because it can't go anywhere. The king on G1, F2 is kind of controlled and so on. And also you can take that as a hint because a lot of the idea revolves around the pawn being on G3, the black pawn on G3. I hope you have found the variations. If you haven't yet, pause the video again and let me reveal the solution here. So black starts with a check. It's rook h1. The king has to capture the rook because it's forced. Then there comes the next check, which is queen h5, another forcing move. King does go to g1. Comes another forcing move, which is queen h2 check, king f1, queen h1. And the king can't go anywhere because e2 square is blocked by his own bishop. f2 is occupied or controlled by this g3 pawn, and the queen is checking the king. So it's a checkmate. And the black player in this game was, Grandmaster Ali Reza Firoja. You may all know him. He's like a very, very strong grandmaster, right? And this was played in a like a blitz game. So let's move on to the final example that I have on this topic. So this is a slightly more complicated solution than the three puzzles that we have seen so far in this video. And it's not like a direct immediate checkmate that you see something happening on the H1 square, but I wanted to show you also like the variations that led to the checkmate that happens on the H1 square. So it's black to play, and black starts with a fantastic move, I would say. Black goes let me before reveal, I would suggest you to pause the video because if you can calculate some variations as I said, this is the toughest puzzle of this video. I think you could calculate and try to find the best solution before you try to see the solution that I'm going to share with you. So in this position, black played bishop to d4. The point of it is something very deep. The point of it is that when the bishop was on f6, well, black cannot capture queen d5 because there's a rook sitting on d1. So what black does is black goes bishop d4, that's by cutting the control of this rook over this knight. So now this knight is kind of undefended, right? Because the bishop is in between the rook and knight. And another thing is by going bishop d4, black is opening up the f file for this rook. And if you do look at it, the king on g1 is kind of weak, right? Because there's a pawn on h3 which can go to h2 anytime. Knight on g4 is very solidly placed, kind of aiming at the white king and so on. So bishop d4 is such a strong move. And white realizes, yeah, if I play cd4, then black would play queen takes d5, and then queen g2 checkmate is coming up, not good for me, and so on. So here, instead of this, white decides to play rook d4. In a way, I would say it's a clever move because you can't play queen takes d5 because the rook would simply capture the queen. But there's a big, big drawback to rook takes d4, and that is black goes h2 check, forcing move. And now white has two, three options, right? Like three options to be precise. He can go h1, he can go g2, he can go f1. In the game, he went king h1, so we will discuss that as the last option because it was played in the game. Let us look at the worst of the three, which is king f1, because then you can just simply play rook takes f2 with the check. I think this is important. You can play h1 queens, but instead, I think this is more precise because now you take with a check, make the king go e1, and then you can promote to a queen or a rook, and then it's a checkmate. And here, instead of king f1 or king, let's say h1, if he does go king g2, then you can simply play rook takes f2 with a check again. And now the king has two squares, h3 or h1. King h1 is very simple because you go rook f1 check, or you can also play knight takes g3 and it's a checkmate. And in case if he goes king h3, then you can just promote to a queen and then it's game over. So you see, it's all forcing moves, checks, captures, checks. Like, a lot of the tactics depends on these forcing moves. Very important is don't miss forcing moves or like the ideas, forcing move ideas. So white goes king h1. I think it's a very good move because black's if black decides to capture on f2 with a check with a knight, then he'll play king h2 and then the dangerous h2 pawn is removed from the board. White would be very, very happy. But instead of knight takes f2, but here black has a very like a very strong reply and also a forcing move. And that is playing knight takes g3 with a check. The point of knight takes g3 being after f g3, which is the most logical move because you don't want to go king g2 and just allow a free promotion to a queen for the h2 pawn. So f takes g3 was played in the game, and here black comes up with another forcing move, rook f1, check, king g2, and now black delivers the checkmate with h1 promoted to queen. So if you do kind of look back from the start of this position, it was all forcing moves by black. So bishop d4, even though it's not a check, bishop d4 is generating threats against the white king. And after rook d4, here starts like absolute forcing moves of checks. h2 is a check, king h1, knight g3 is a check, f g3, rook f1 is a check, king g2 h1. So when you see a series of forcing moves, you get really good at chess. That's, I think, one of the important aspects to get better at chess. So I do hope you like this video. Please do, like, subscribe to the channel, press on the bell icon if you want to get instant notifications. I will see you soon with another video. Signing off, Grandmaster Priyadharshan. Bye bye, everyone.